A rare warning from the head of NATO is sending ripples through Europe. Mark Rutte says the European Union risks hurting itself if it tries to break away on security. At the same time, tensions with Washington are flaring on free speech, elections, and war. Together, they reveal a transatlantic alliance under growing strain. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte is pushing back hard against calls for Europe to go its own way on defense. Speaking to German media, Rutte warned that an independent European security path would weaken, not strengthen, the continent. His message was blunt. When it comes to security, the EU is not NATO, and never can be. Rutte was responding to comments from Manfred Weber, head of the European People's Party. Weber has urged Brussels to stop shaping policy around Washington and instead write its own security strategy. But Rutte cautioned that NATO is larger than the EU alone, and that Europe represents only a fraction of the alliance's total economic power. For the United States, Rutte said, expectations are clear. Europe must spend more and take greater responsibility for its own defense. President Donald Trump has pushed NATO members toward a 5% GDP military spending target, a move that has divided the alliance. Several countries, including Spain and Slovakia, have rejected the proposal outright. Madrid has called the target impossible, triggering threats of tariffs from Washington. The dispute has exposed deep disagreements over burden sharing and over who ultimately sets the rules. Differences extend beyond defense budgets. European leaders in Washington appear increasingly misaligned on Ukraine. Hungary's prime minister has accused the EU of undermining U.S. peace efforts, while reports suggest Washington is wary of escalation. Now, a new front has opened: free speech. The Trump administration has imposed visa bans on 5 Europeans accused of pressuring U.S. tech companies to censor American voices. Washington calls it a defense of free expression. Europe calls it interference. Earlier this month, European Council President Antonio Costa has warned the U.S. to stay out of Europe's political choices. His remarks followed a new U.S. national security strategy portraying Europe as weak and signaling sympathy for far-right movements. Brussels insists only Europeans decide Europe's future.
So we have differences concerning our vision of the world. Pause. But this goes much further than that. Pause. It is certainly true that this particular strategy continues to speak about Europe as an important ally. Pause. That's good. But if we are truly allies, then we must act like allies. And allies do not threaten to interfere in the lives, in the internal political choices of their fellow allies. We respect them. We respect the sovereignty of one another. It's quite certain that many Europeans do not share the same vision as Americans on a variety of different subjects. And it's only natural that they do not share the same perspective that we ourselves hold. What we absolutely cannot accept is this ongoing threat of interference in the political life and internal affairs of Europe. The United States simply cannot take the place of European citizens in deciding which political parties are good and which are bad. The United States cannot replace Europe when it comes to the vision we have of what constitutes freedom of expression.
By Nicoletta at the absolute beginning of his address, a moment of critical importance.
Our history has taught us that there can be no freedom of expression without freedom of information. And the freedom of information demands the respect for pluralism. And in that way, he will never be able to ensure any true freedom of information if he holds a complete monopoly of how should I put it, of software. And he won't have any freedom of expression if the citizen's right to information is sacrificed just to protect and defend the techno-oligarchs from the United States.
Just one small final question, because you have practically covered every single point and you have outlined for us at the same time. Is
And in fact, when you carefully read through the passages that specifically address Ukraine, it becomes quite evident why Moscow so strongly shares this particular vision. Because the objective in these strategies is never a peace, a truly just and lasting peace. It's only the cessation of confrontations and the stability of relations with Russia. Obviously, everyone wants a stable relationship with Russia. We all, or almost all of us, even believed we had already found a stable relationship with Russia before 2014. We started to have doubts in 2014 with Crimea.
And after the year 2022, I believe that no one can possibly ignore the fact that it is simply not feasible for us to establish or maintain a stable relationship with Russia for as long as the Russian state continues to represent a significant threat to our collective security.
From defense spending to Ukraine, from digital speech to political influence, the transatlantic relationship is under pressure. NATO remains intact, but the unity beneath it is being tested. As global tensions rise, the question is no longer whether cracks exist, but how far they will spread.